Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, again, wherever you are. This morning, we are going to be looking at what kind of leader were you born to be? And as usual, with all of my sessions, I'm going to kick it off with a question. So, of course, grab a paper and pen and write down your answers. It's going to be a self-reflective session that we're having here. So, my question is, why should anybody be led by you? I want you to really push yourself and write down at least 3, if not 4, 5 reasons why somebody should be led by you. Now, why am I asking this question? Because knowing what makes you worth being followed will enable you to become the leader that you were born to be. And secondly, knowing the answers to that question will enable you to articulate it whenever you need to, in terms of going for jobs or being promoted or creating followership. So it's a really, really important question. In case you haven't listened to any of the other webinars, my name is Elke Edwards. I am the founder and creative director at IB House. We're an organisation that is on a mission to put leadership and life skills at the heart of education, be it formal education in schools or corporate education. We absolutely know that leadership and life skills need to be at the heart of how we educate the next generations. We work with a range of incredible organisations, helping them develop their future leaders, but we also work with a number of schools. This is just some examples of the schools we work with, where they use our IB House Award at sixth form level to bring these skills, and it's facilitated by teachers, to bring these skills into schools. So that's who we are. That's why I'm here talking to you today. So what's the aim of the session today? Well, it's really to give you a little bit of space to consider who you are as a leader. And to do that, I'm going to do 3 things. I'm going to look at the what and how of leadership. I'm going to take a deeper dive into behavior. And we're going to look at who you are at your core, and what skills and knowledge you have to bring to leadership. So let's start with the first part of that. We're going to look at the what and how of leadership. Now, if you Googled leadership, I keep forgetting the number, but it's something like well over 1 billion results in 0.246 seconds. And that would lead you to believe that leadership is a relatively complex subject, but actually the reality is that's not quite true. In simple terms, leadership comes down to 2 key things. The first is the what, which is always the same, and the second is the how, which is always different. So let's look at the what. So the what comes down, and this is what I would call the job of leadership. And the job of leadership is the same whether or not you're running, a massive global organization or you're running a 3-man band painting and decorating team. First, you need a vision. Secondly, you need a plan. And thirdly, you need the environment that is going to deliver both the vision and the plan. So the vision doesn't need to be created by the leader, but it does need to be bought into clearly by the leader and the leader's team. So we need a vision that is clear, that is bought into, and that is transferable, that we can pass on to others. Secondly, we need a plan. We need a plan that is going to deliver that vision. It needs to have the milestones and the resources, the clarity and the buy-in that we need to deliver against a vision. And then we need the environment. And the environment really comes down to 2 separate areas. The first is the process environment. So do people have the resources and time to do the job? Do you have the resources and time to do your job? Because if you don't, potentially your leader is letting you down in that way. Do the processes in the environment I'm in, do they help or hinder me? Am I rewarded fairly? Do I have the autonomy and the support I need in the right places? Am I communicated with effectively, or are we only fed information on an as-needed basis, which often creates cultures of low trust? And do I have access to the people I need to make the decisions I need to make? So that's the process and environment. And a leader's job is to make sure that that works. So the second part of environment is the emotional environment. You know, do I want to be here? Do I believe in you and what you're doing? Have I bought into what's going on here? Do I enjoy being here? Do I feel like I belong? You know, am I proud to go down the pub and go, I work at X and I do this job? So do I feel emotionally connected? Am I prepared to give discretionary effort? Am I prepared to bring my best self to this role? Now, it's very interesting because lots of leaders are relatively good at the process stuff and not so good at the emotional stuff. Some leaders are great at the emotional stuff, but you know, the doors are hanging off, there's leaks coming through the ceiling, and actually they're not able to create the process environment. So it's worth thinking about, from your perspective, where does your natural talent lead you? What would you be good at? Would you be incredible at creating a vision, but not so great at making sure that the plan worked? Would you be amazing at the emotional environment, but actually maybe people would be a bit confused about where they were going? So just have a think about that. So that's the what of leadership, is effectively the job of leadership. So what's the how of leadership? Well, if the job of leadership is always the same, and clearly the context varies, then the how of leadership is always, always different. And that's because it depends on you. It depends on who you are, how you show up to that job. And that's really easy to imagine, because you could take any job of leadership, leading the country, let's take that one for now, and you can put a number of different people in that job. The job is the same, but how they do it will depend on the behavior they bring, their skills and knowledge, and right at the core, what we at Ivy House call your core strength. We're going to talk about that a bit at the end. So let's first start with behavior. Now, what's fascinating about leadership is you only know a leader because of the behavior they bring to any situation. You don't know them because of their knowledge and skills. You know them because of the behavior that their knowledge and skill drives. So the interesting thing, if people, and in fact, I would say that is true for every relationship in your life, your partner only knows you because of the behavior you bring. Your kids, the pupils that you teach, I was going to say lead, that you teach, only know you because of your behavior. It's always a very interesting question, what they would say about your behavior. So if behavior is so crucial, not just in a leadership context, but in a life context, then what do we know about behavior? Well, that brings me, and I suspect some of you may have seen me talk about this equation before. I unashamedly claim that this is the most important equation that we could ever teach anybody. And it is E plus B equals R. It stands for event plus behavior equals result. And what this really tells us is that behavior, our behavioral choice in any situation, is the magic ingredient to whether or not we succeed or fail, whether or not we get what we want in life or don't. So let me give you an example, very common to lots of your hearts: exams. So I will always ask the question, are exams stressful? And if I took 100 kids, I'd probably get about 85 of them go, yeah, exams are stressful. But the reality is exams aren't anything other than, you know, people going into a room together with a piece of paper and having to answer some questions. What makes them stressful is the behavior we choose in response to that event. Because events happen. I mean, life is literally just a series of events, one event after the other. And it's those behavioral choices we get to make in the middle as the event is coming towards us. We get to have a choice here about how we respond. So, you know, your partner is late again for date night for the third time on the trot. You have the option about how you respond to that. That's the event, them being late. You get a choice here. A parent comes into school and is really aggressive and demanding and blaming. That's the event. You get a choice on how you respond. Now, What's really, really important here, although this makes sense in theory, most people don't get it in reality. Because most of us live in a world where we blame others or the situation for that, for our choice in behavior. So if we say, well, you know, my partner was in a really, really bad mood last night and she was really aggressive with me, and that's why I didn't get any sleep, and that's why I'm in a bad mood, we are blaming other people for the behavioral choices we are making here and now. So let's take a pause for thought. Grab your pen and paper again and ask yourself, have you ever blamed someone else or a situation for your behavior? Now, you'd be superhuman to answer no to this. I do it on a very regular basis. My husband, I believe, wrongly, determines a lot of my behavior, but that's actually not true. What's true is something happens and I choose to respond in a certain way. The event does not dictate my response. Now, the reason I'm spending quite a bit of time on this is because as leaders, we only experience leaders through their behaviors. And I want you to take just a moment and think of the leaders that surround you right now, and think of the behaviors that you are witnessing, that you are experiencing, and then just jot them down. Because ultimately, leadership is the coming together of behavior. I experience your behavior, you experience my behavior. So let's have a moment of honesty for a moment. And what I'd like you to do on your pen, with your pen and paper, is I would like you to write down 3 words that the people that are experiencing you would use to describe you in the last few months. So, little line down the middle of your paper, first at home and at work. If I were to ask somebody you lived with right now to use 3 words to describe your behavior at home, what would they say to me? Jot them down. And at work, I was to do the same. I was to go into a place of work and ask the kind of behaviors that people had been experiencing of you recently. What would they say? So I don't know about you, but when we've done this exercise a number of times, what we've found is that people often reserve their best behavior for work and their worst behavior for home. And they have a whole belief system, a whole story going, well, you know, I put all so much energy into being good over here. You know, the people that love me, they're going to love me anyway. So I'm just going to be a bit of an idiot when I'm with them, or not very nice, or very tired, or very grumpy with my kids when I get home. That still is a choice. So that's our whistle-stop tour into behavior. How people experience this is through our behavior, and our behavior is our choice. So let's go deeper then into who we are as leaders. And let's look at who you really are. Now, you might not recognize yourself in this picture, but this is who you are. You have a vision. It might not be apparent to you. You have a set of driving forces, some of which will be a priority at different times. You will have a set of personal values, a set of personal beliefs, both limiting and empowering. You will have something that puts you in your element, and sometimes hidden deep within you, or sometimes not, you will have a purpose. That's who you are. And that's what we at Ivy House call core strength. Now, I've spent my career working with senior leaders, and I've got to tell you, 99% of senior leaders do not know who they are to this level. They don't understand what the blueprint is of them. Now, this is why it matters so much, because if we don't know who we are, it's going to be really easy to live a life that violates who we are. Now, I'm not saying that we won't end up feeling like this sometimes when we understand what our visions are, our values are, when we understand what puts us into our element. But when we understand that blueprint of ourselves, what it enables us to do is when we fall out, is to bring ourselves back. So let me give you an example. I have a personal value of freedom. So when I work in an environment that doesn't honor that value of freedom, I can find myself over here. But it's only through knowing that I have a personal value of freedom that I am able to bring myself back up. I'm doing a yoga stand here. I'm on one leg. You might not know that. But I am able to bring myself up to balance. So as I say, it doesn't mean when we know this stuff, we're not going to end up out of balance. But what it does mean is that we have the knowledge and capability to bring ourselves back. Now, why does all of this matter to leadership? Because I'll give you another example. I am the founder of Ivy House, but I am not the CEO, because my blueprint is not a CEO blueprint. I wouldn't be very good at it. In fact, I'd probably be quite bad at it. But I'm a very good creative director. So understanding who we are at our blueprint enables us to choose the path that's right for us. Let me give you another example. This is my husband. He's a very, very good looking man. And he's a lawyer, and he is in his element when he is negotiating deals, when he's in M&A, when he's dealing with different countries, different systems of law, and he has to find out the intricate problem and the challenge and the way of overcoming it. This is me, if you ask me to be a lawyer. Now, what strikes me, especially as teachers and people responsible for developing the next generation, helping people understand what puts them in their element is going to be key to becoming great leaders. Whether or not they're leaders of others, or great self-leaders, or creative leaders, or thought leaders, or strategic leaders, people that are change makers, they're all leaders. But finding out who we are at our blueprint, at our core here, is going to be key. And then the middle bit between behavior and a core strength is our skills and knowledge. So understanding what skills and knowledge we have. I have a particular skill around coaching. I have a skill around speaking. I have a skill around writing. But I don't have a skill around spreadsheets, around accounting, around negotiating. So what skills and knowledge do you bring to your leadership? And then what would you like to develop? Because we're not set pieces, are we? So if you want to be X, the next headmaster, if you want to go and work for the Ministry of Education, whatever it might be, what skills and knowledge do you need to develop as a leader? So those are the three parts that we need to look at, because becoming a leader is synonymous with becoming yourself. It is precisely that simple and precisely that difficult. We have to shift from this idea that leadership is a set piece and I have to go and learn those skills and behaviors of what leaders do. That's just not true. What we need to do is find out who we are at core strength. We need to build the skills and knowledge that will allow us to achieve our vision for our life. And then we need to make conscious choices about the behavior we choose in response to any situation. So that's what I wanted to cover today. I wanted to cover who you are, the what and how of leadership, take a deep dive into behavior, and then look at who you are and your core strength. And I'm going to leave you with two more questions. Right now, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? If I were to go into a room of full of people that you knew, that you didn't know so well, that people that liked you, people that didn't like you, and I gave them a truth pill, I want you to imagine what words they would use to describe you. Now, why am I asking you this question? Because the words they would use to describe you, that's your current brand. That's your current brand as a person. That's your current brand as a teacher, as a head, as a leader. That's who you are to them. That's how they experience you. Now, if you want to evolve into the next stage of leadership, then you need to answer the second question. What do you want them to say? What behavior do you need to choose so that they will say what you want them to say, so that your brand reflects actually who you are at your core. So that is my whistle-stop tour into leadership. If you want to learn more, you can delve into the book, and you can listen to our podcast, actually, Extraordinary Unplugged, which is available on every platform. And of course, if you'd like to find out more about what IB House does, you can get us on our website. I hope you've enjoyed the session. Thank you.